Hello everybody, Lord Almighty here. Today is Sunday, March 9th, 2025, and I am here at one of my favorite local ponds, and I'm going to try to catch some fish today. But more than that, I am here to test out the newest member of the fleet. What I have here is a Phenix Feather 7-1 medium light bait casting rod paired with a 13 Fishing Concept Z reel. I have never used either of these brands before, and I wanted to give these a try because I wanted a bait casting rod that was not a true BFS, but something that could handle lighter baits, like 1/8 to 1/16 of an ounce. But I also wanted them to be heavy enough to throw larger baits like a Whopper Plopper 90. So it would be sort of like a catch-all medium weight type of rod to use for bass fishing, both smallmouths and largemouths. And I'm here to test it out and see if I'm gonna like it. So since I have never used this reel yet, I'm gonna have to tune it in first. So first things first, I'm gonna make sure the drag is set well enough. By the way, I've got this spooled up with 20-pound braided line. Okay, that might be a little bit light, so a little bit more. Okay, that feels pretty good. And now we'll set the spool tension. You want that bait to barely fall on its own when you go into free spool. Alright, that seems pretty good. Now let's set the magnets. One thing I immediately don't like about this reel is the magnets are behind the side plate. Now, that's good for, you know, if you palm the reel like I do, you don't run the risk of accidentally increasing or decreasing the magnets and risking a backlash. But it does make them kind of a chore to adjust. So let's pull off the back plate. Now luckily the back plate stays connected, so there's no risk of it like falling off into the water when you disconnect it. So looks like these have centrifugal brakes, so I'm going to turn this all the way up to the highest setting, put it back, click it back in place. Another thing I do like is that the side plate release, it stays open. A lot of times they're like sliders that you have to keep in the open position and then try to twist off the side, which is extremely awkward. But this is nice, you just click it and then you can remove it. So I definitely like that design. And speaking of design, the main selling point of this reel seems to be this right here, which is called the Z slide. But reading up on the literature for this reel, it doesn't explain what it does. I think it has something to do with like fine-tuning the spool tension. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn that all the way up and see what happens. You always, well, I say you, I always, when I have a brand new reel, I always turn up the brakes as high as they'll go, because different reels have different, you know, the brakes are all different on them. And some you can get away with a low setting, some you have to have a high setting. So it's always best to start with the highest setting and kind of work your way backwards. This way you can get it tuned into where you can cast it freely as far as possible without risking a backlash. All right, so to start off with, I've got one of my favorite baits. This is the 4-inch Kitech Easy Shiner. I've got it rigged on a 1/16 ounce jig head. I normally throw these on a spinning reel because they're so light, but this is the kind of stuff that I'm hoping I can fish on this this outfit. So let's see how it goes. Okay, well, predictably, not a lot of casting distance because the brakes are set really high. The reel does feel a bit tight. When I reel it, it does feel tight. All right, let's try reducing the magnets, or the centrifugal brakes. Okay, I think that went a little bit further. adjusting it again, backing it off to 4. This goes from 0 to 6. You know, I'm going to try putting the Z-slide in the middle, see if that makes a difference. Okay, definitely getting better casting distance now, but still doesn't feel free and easy. All right, so let's try backing off a little bit more. That's starting to feel better. That is definitely starting to feel better. But I think I can go a little bit less on the brakes. So I'll go down one more setting. And we'll see how this one goes. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I might futz with it a little bit more as the day goes on, but I think I've got it dialed in pretty decently. And now I can just focus on fishing. And as I go, I will give you my initial thoughts on this rod and reel setup. All right, well, first impressions so far are mostly positive. One thing I will say is that this rod, the Phenix Feather, it lives up to its name. It is extremely light. As a matter of fact, when I was buying it, I compared it to other rods of the same action, and it was like half the weight of the other rods that I was looking at. So very light, very comfortable to fish with. Still feels maybe a little bit too beefy for using these light lures, but it handles them well enough, and that's really what I was looking for. I'm looking for kind of a catch-all rod that can do multiple different things. I don't have the kind of money to buy 100 different rods and reels and, you know, have one or two for every single technique that I want to use. So having one that can competently handle multiple types of fishing is what I'm looking for, and I think this one should be able to do it. As for the reel, again, it's pretty smooth. It casts well. One thing I am still baffled by, though, is this Z-slide. I've tried it in the full-on and full-off positions, and I really can't feel much of a difference one way or the other. So I have no idea if I'm ever going to make use of it. But, you know, at least it seems to work pretty well and cast pretty well. So, you know, if it's got a useless feature on it that I'm never going to use, then I can live with that. All right, well, I switched away from a swim bait and I switched over to another bait that I anticipate using a lot on this outfit, and that is a Ned rig. I'm gonna see how this handles like a more bottom bouncing technique. Well, so far, seems to be handling the Ned rig. Again, not perfect, but well enough. So far so good with this outfit. I will probably be changing lures pretty frequently throughout the course of the day, just to see what they feel like on this rod. That's my main goal today, is just to get a feel for this thing. Well, as far as today's conditions are concerned, the water is high and stained, which is good. This pond fishes best under those water conditions. It is chilly and windy out. It is currently 41 degrees. It's supposed to warm up to about 51 in the middle of the afternoon, but that wind is also supposed to start getting stronger and stronger as the day goes on too. And as some of you may know, strong winds and I normally do not play well together. So that might throw a wrench into my fish catching possibility. But I will press on regardless. What I'm hoping is we do have a bright sunny day here, not a cloud in the sky, and as the sun beats down on these rock walls and warms them up during the course of the day, it might bring some fish up shallow. So that is one possibility. All right, well, time for another lure change. I got this shallow crankbait tied on, which is on the heavier end of the spectrum of lures that I intend to use on this outfit. So let's see how this outfit handles something a bit heavier than those finesse baits I was tossing. Well, not surprisingly, this heavier bait is getting me better casting distance than those light finesse lures. And I was... Oh, is that a fish? It is! I snagged it. It's a crappie. I snagged a crappie in the back. Oh wow, that's not how I wanted to get my first fish on this rig, but okay. All right. Get out of there. Okay, there we go. First fish, kinda, on the new rig. Well, anyway, as I was saying, I was able to back off on the brakes even more. I've currently got it set on 1, which is the second lowest level, and still no backlashes, which is great. Let's see if I can hook one in the mouth. Alright, well, I've been getting several what I think are very light bites on that crankbait, and if there's one crappie out here, there might be a lot. So I'm going to switch over to the most finesse of finesse baits, which is the drop shot. Fortunately, most of the baits I've been getting, or most of the bites I've been getting, have been pretty close into shore, so I won't need to cast this thing very far if it turns out that this is a little bit light for this rig. But we will see. Yeah, it doesn't handle that extremely well, but it's getting it out far enough for what I need. Alright, well, I didn't get any hits on the drop shot, which is interesting. That's telling me if they're hitting the crankbait and not the drop shot, it means that they're suspending shallow and they're looking up. They're not going to go down to chase a bait. So I decided to take off the drop shot, and now I'm just going with this smaller crankbait. Maybe they'll be able to get this one in their mouths. Alright, well, I have gone from satisfied to legitimately impressed, because this crankbait that I'm throwing is very light. It's actually a balsa crankbait from Rapala, and this is casting it maybe even further than I can on light spinning gear. I mean, it is just winging it out there. So maybe I found like the optimal lure to use with this setup. Not to say I'm going to limit it to this crankbait. Obviously, I bought this thing to do multiple presentations, but now I have like a benchmark. This is the best thing to use on this outfit. Best lure type, best size. So that's the ceiling. I have found the ceiling, I think. All right, another lure change. I was not getting any hookups on the shallow crankbait, and you can get as many hits as you want on a bait, but if you're not hooking up, then you might as well just stop. So, switched over to a finesse jig. I'm gonna troll bottom with this. See if I can pick up a bass or something. Well, this outfit is handling the finesse jig pretty well. Obviously, it's a bait that has more wind resistance, so I had to fiddle with the reel a little bit to stop me from backlashing. But that's pretty standard for any bait cast reel. So I wouldn't consider that a disadvantage or a strike against it. It's just something you got to put up with, especially on a windy day like today. But yeah, overall, I've put this thing through several paces, and it's either succeeded or thrived. So I'm very positive about this new rod and reel. I think I'm gonna have to give this one a green check. This is a good one. Of course, I haven't hooked anything big on it yet. That's going to be the acid test, obviously. Can it handle a 4 or 5 pound bass or what have you? If it can, then it might go from a green check to a gold star. Longer. Well, the rod can handle catching a big stick, and for me, that is extremely important because that happens a lot. Alright, well, I need to finish this video off in the car because that wind is really rocking and rolling out there. There's no way you would have heard me over it. So just a quick recap on my thoughts about the Phenix Feather and the 13 Fishing Concept Z. Overall, very positive. I like the rod. I like how light it is. I like how it handles light and medium-sized lures about equally as well. Same thing with the reel. I think it casts pretty well once you get it tuned in. I experienced only what I would call incidental backlashing, and I think it casts pretty smooth. I can get good casting distance with it. My only minor gripes with the reel are it does feel a little bit tight on the retrieve, and I still have no earthly idea what the Z-slide is supposed to do or how that's going to help me. But overall, I think it's a very good rod and reel combo, and you guys are definitely going to be seeing it more on the channel. And now I'd like to get your thoughts. Has anybody used either the rod and the reel? Have you used both of them? How long have you used them for? What do you think? What do you use them for? And I think very importantly, for a rod and reel combo with a combined MSRP of about $400, is it worth the investment, or are we better off buying something else? So, sorry there wasn't a lot of fish catching in this video. I was more focused on testing out the rod and reel. Hopefully the next time you see it, there will be a lot more fish caught on it. But until then, thank you all so much for joining me, and I will see you on the next adventure.